It's kind of interesting because before we started this interview, we were talking about how you decided to sort of do this new hair thing while you were
Yeah.
joking while you still have hair left and stuff. And obviously we're talking about the new album LA Times, which is kind of I don't, it's an album where you're taking stock in life and, it's kind of crazy to me when I was reading the press release. It said the man who was 25 years old. Literally next week it's turning 25. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not right. That can't be right. Like kind
Yeah.
of crazy the passage of time, right? And you know, again in the press release it was also saying that this LA Times is like your most personal album since then. So let's just
Yeah.
jump into it about
Yeah.
how a lot of life has happened between those records.
A lot of life has happened in the last 5 years. I was saying to someone just now, I've always sort of thought about this as like if you're an artist, making a you're a tea bag, right? And all of your experiences are the tea leaves in the tea bag. And then the hot water comes in and out comes the cup of tea. And depending on each individual tea leaf, whatever that is, the tea is the song, is the painting, is the story, is the film, is the poem, is whatever it is that the artist makes. That's all of these experiences in there. And the last 5 years of my life, sort of since coming to LA, it was a very insane 5 years. First of all, I mean, not even to mention the fucking pandemic, because I keep forgetting that that even happened now. But just in personal terms, as far as
Mm-hmm.
like the geography or the topography of my life is completely different. My wife and I split up, which is really amazing and great, but sad as well. My son, he's like today is his last day of school
Oh wow.
of
Like high
ever.
school?
High school's over.
Oh
Today is
wow.
the I just waved goodbye to him. I filmed him going up the road, and
Hmm.
if I close my eyes, I can reach out and put my hand on his head 12 years ago when he was 6 years old. And
Yeah.
he's there. I was just looking at pictures of him, and they're like they could have been last week because of the technology's kind of almost the same of the photographs. Um, and it's not like when we were 18, the photographs of us when we were 5 or 6 were black and white or like weird, shitty quality, or they're digital pictures of him, and we're still digital. So time's fucking weird. Anyway, yeah, it's been a um, really intense, emotionally intense 5 years for me,
Wow.
and in so many ways. And I think when you make an album through those tea leaves, what you're left with is quite an intense flavored album. It's personal, and I think that's probably the best I can give you.
No, it was great. It was a great answer. I definitely want to go into some of the stuff, especially as it pertains to specific songs that you're talking about, the upheaval of the last 5 years or just life. But one thing that is interesting to me is over the last 5 years, over the last 30 years, it seems like there's been one constant in your life, and it's been the lineup of Travis. Am I correct that it's still the original lineup? This
Yeah.
is I mean, there's very few bands I could think of that maybe you too, even though Larry's taken a time off of it. Like, there's very few bands that I could think of. Like, you think of like the big bands that have been around for 20 to 50 years, and very few of them have the same original lineup they had when they were very young, when they were teenagers. That's like the one constant here,
Yeah. Well,
which is
there
pretty
there are
cool.
actually there's actually quite a lot of Coldplay are still the same band.
Okay.
Um, we're the same band. I was talking to Matty from the 1975, and
Mm,
they are they've been together since he was 13.
that's
Same
cute.
band, same lineup.
Still the
No,
exception to the rule, though. I still have to sort of think hard to think of these examples compared to,
yeah,
Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, The Cure, The
yeah,
Rolling Stones, that like,
yeah, yeah,
Red Hot Chili Peppers can't even keep track of how
yeah,
many people have been in that band. What is the
yeah.
secret that, you guys have gone through a lot together as a unit?
I think the key to it is we've been through a lot, like, like so much, but nothing's been big enough to blow us up. It's just some bands get together and they last a few days, and some bands last a couple of years. The average life expectancy of a band in the wild is approximately 7 years.
Wow.
Average, I would say. I'm just throwing out a guess, but it's probably
I was
less.
about to say, did you read that in some study or something?
Not, but I'm sure there is a study, and there's an easy way to figure that out. But we've way outlived that, and I think the reason is that the bonds between the members of the band or the personalities of the members of the band are such that they're it's like chemistry. Their
Mhm.
covalent bonds are so tight that nothing you would have to like smash them, in the CERN particle accelerator to I don't even think that would split us up. We're so we're a very perfect little four-piece band.
Absolutely, you absolutely are. So you mentioned it just now, so I did want to get into it. I mean, I was quite frankly surprised when I
Yeah.
found out that you got divorced. Actually, quite a few years ago, because I've interviewed you since then, and it was
We're
like
not
2000.
divorced yet. We're not divorced.
Okay,
We're split up, but
okay.
we're not coming back together, but I'm like we were getting our green card sorted out and we were just like let's
I see.
just we'll stay married, but we're not like we'll get divorced at some point down the line. Just like almost we'll probably get divorced in 10 years. Just like when we met, it took us 10 years to get married. So we'll probably get divorced 10 years time.
But
Um
just the split in general surprised me because,
uh
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like your relationship with Nora kind of was parallel with the trajectory of Travis. I remember you mentioning her in interviews in
yeah,
the NME like a really long
yeah,
time ago. She was definitely part of
yeah.
the Travis story and
Oh
figured
yeah.
in some lyrics and stuff.
Oh
And,
my God, yeah, songs.
so you kept it. I don't know if it was not mentioned when 10 songs came out. Now I'm revisiting that album and maybe some
Yeah.
other fans are too, and kind of putting two and two together and it all kind of makes
Yeah, that was
sense.
a breakup album.
Yeah, which, maybe I didn't realize at the time and a lot of people didn't realize at the time. So I guess
Couldn't
what I'm
talk
trying to,
about it at the time
that's what I want to get
because
to is like,
I was right in it. We're right in the middle of it, and it's like it's like here's the songs, and I couldn't talk about it, and I didn't want to talk about it because it was personal, and I
yeah.
still don't. I mean, it's personal. It's like it's like asking someone to show them, really their diaries or something. It's like that's the private thing. But I mean, in a general idea of it, I think we were together for 26 years. Um,
Wow.
and we're again, when you're when you're in we get confused with these words, married, and these traditional things that happen. But to me, Nora and I are old souls together. It's like, oh, when you met, when I met Nora, or when I meet any person in my life that's still with me that makes you, or maybe you can speak to this as well, where there's certain people in your life that you go, oh, it's you again. I don't know who that could be for you, but for me, it's like when I met Dougie, I was like, I don't know why. I'm just like, oh, it's you again.
Like a
We
past,
were
like we met in a past life kind of feeling.
maybe he's like someone in my family constellation that like when you grow up, you have your cast. You have your mum, your dad, maybe your dad's over there, maybe your mum's over there, maybe your grandfather's here, your sisters, you've written all these cast of characters like a sitcom or a soap opera. And then you leave the soap opera and you start your own soap opera and cast your own soap opera. But all you've got to go on to cast is all the people who so you kind of cast similar faces and similar people and you find in a lot of ways that the person you marry might be a lot like a parent person, like the same. And Nora's very, much like people like that in my life. And
Hmm.
so that's that. And then I think when you come to the end of that relationship, like to me, like me and Nora were like, it's like we're nothing's changed. It's weird. It's like I just you come to the end of your we're living in under the same roof together because I just need space. And then you move into this other chapter with them. But you never stop being they're in your lives. You're always married to them. I didn't need to marry Nora to be married to her. I didn't have to sign a contract with Dougie to be in a band with him or to be married to Dougie. I'm married to Dougie. I'm married to Neil. I'm married to my son. In the true sense of marriage being you're bound to them. You've a duty, you're loyal, you take a bullet for them, but you'd also push them in front of a train.
That's a lyric right there.
Uh,
Yeah, you have a way with words. Well, we don't have to go into any of the personal, private stuff unless you wanted to, but I assume you
right.
don't, about what happened, what transpired. But I guess what I wanted to know is you didn't want to talk, you were expressing what was going on in your songs
Yeah.
5-ish years, 4 years
Yeah, yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah.
But now you have the song Live It All Again, and you are at least openly addressing it. Like,
Yeah.
why now did it
Yeah.
feel time where you would go public with this information?
Well, no, the song was written almost that song comes from that time, but it just didn't make it
Oh,
on that record.
oh, okay.
So yeah, so and the what happened is it's like every everything has a life, everything has a timer, and you don't know what, like, for instance, you don't know when you're going to die, like your life or your own life. You don't know when. I don't know when you meet someone, you don't know how long that relationship's going to last. Um, but then one day it just stops, and you really recognize it. Something shifts in your heart, and you go, oh. And if you recognize it, some people recognize it and they stay in it, and they shouldn't. It's
Mm.
like if everyone's the thing for me
Yep.
is if everyone's happy, if Clay, most importantly, if Clay's good and he understands what's going on,
Hmm.
and it's cool, and we're not, it's like it's so weird because it doesn't feel any different. It's just it just now is more out in the open kind of thing.
Well,
Uh,
it's interesting because you just mentioned like we don't know when we're gonna die or whatever, and
yeah.
that sparked a memory of I listened to all the album commentary that
Oh yeah.
was sent to me. Which, by the way, all bands should do that. It's like the best
Oh
preparation
yeah.
for an interview is the fact that you did a
Oh
track by
great.
track. But you talked a lot about how you've been thinking about death or dying lately, and
Yeah.
there's a song called Alive that's
Yeah.
actually specifically about that. So like is there like a sense of mortality or time running out that is kind of a running theme through this record? Because I know you recently, you turned 50, which could be a
There's
milestone.
a it's running through my entire career. Death is like the ultimate thing, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen a dead body before.
In a in
Have
a
you seen a dead?
casket, in a casket I have at like an
Yeah,
open casket funeral. It
yeah,
was very unsettling actually.
yeah. So, but you've seen a dead body when you've seen your father or your uncle or your grandfather or grandma, whatever it is, you've seen someone, you'll know that that's when, for me, you get really like, whoa, that's like fucking final. That's like
Mm,
they're not there anymore. Where the fuck are they?
mm,
And then having Clay, having my son, having kids. Like I was looking at pictures the other night, and I'm like, where the fuck is that little boy? I'm like, literally, he's not the same fucking amount of particles in him are different. Every single one is different. He's a completely different person now, renewed. Like someone took that little, where's that little boy? And there's a part of my inner monkey that's when I see that little thing, it's like, where is he? Where did he go? He's dead, is where he went. That little boy's no longer there. So you go through your life and it's like we're dying in a way every day, and death
Hmm.
is not. Death is just like it's the sun going, it's like it's the sun's, that time of the evening where you're like you could go, is the sun rising or setting? It's just you don't know. We're coming like you're around about 40, 50, and we're at that point in our lives where you can't quite tell if it's sunset or sunrise. And but all of these memories and the way that time passes is and the idea of death is big in my whole uh loads of songs talk about it. So I've always been fascinated with it ever since I saw like my first dead body.
Wow, I didn't realize you had. I mean, because I think a lot of people think of your music as Travis's music as being kind of like cheerful or, hopeful because there is a
Yes.
brightness to the sound of your music. I don't know if people really think about you as being someone who ruminates on such things.
Well, like I mean, yeah. If you definitely if you look at the singles, then that wouldn't be apparent. Maybe
Right.
on Why Is It Always Rain on Me, maybe. Maybe on Writing to Reach You, maybe. Maybe
Driftwood,
on
Driftwood,
Drift,
maybe.
definitely. See, they're there, but there's a certain thing about the songs that the music does something that makes you feel it's like again bittersweet. It's this kind of two things at once that certain things do quite well. And there's a song called Indefinitely that's definitely like that. I just we're everything. It's like you talk about everything. It's there's nothing's off the table. When you're writing a song, if you get a good melody, you're like, oh fuck, it's about death. Fuck it. It's got a great melody. Oh fuck, this one's about life. Oh, great. It's got a great melody. I don't care what it's about. And I don't sit down before a song and go, "Oh, I'm going to write a song about this."
Hmm.
Um, it just comes out and it becomes the thing that it's
Weird
going to
question,
be.
a little bit of a loaded question, but do you feel like sometimes Travis hasn't been taken seriously critically, like that you
Yeah,
have
of
sort of been
course.
dismissed as a jolly, feel good band, which you have that side to you, but obviously that's just not that's not the full picture at all.
Well, we made a documentary about it, and I think we
Oh yeah, what was it was tell me the title of
all
it again.
it's called Almost Fashionable,
Yes.
and
Yeah, very
yeah,
amusingly
but
self-derogatory.
it came from a line in the song, sorry, in the film where Andy, or guitarist, we're all sitting in the bed and Andy's talking about, and he goes, "There was this moment in Travis's history where blah blah blah, and we were here and we were almost fashionable." And we've always been a band that exists outside of um, stuff. Outside of in Glasgow, we were never part of the scene in Glasgow. We were always in the outside of it. Then in London, we were still on the outside of it. And then suddenly one day, we were suddenly it. And it's like, oh fuck. Now it's in that type of band is they're like doormen. Like the Strokes are another band like that. They open the door for all these other bands that kind of come through. And it's not because of you're good or bad, or it's just you happen to be there with that sound at that time and no one else has it, and you open a door. You're a window for everyone else. Um, I think does do do do, do we suffer from not being taken seriously? I don't know. I think definitely a lot of journalists in the UK, and this is what the documentary goes to talk about. They don't really know as they're just it's received wisdom. Like I see the UK music press as like a like the sixth year of school or the 12th grade, and you've got the really like the cool like the ones that are like the ones in the leather jackets like smoking gitans and listening to fucking Serge Gainsbourg and contemplating Jean-Paul Sartre or whatever, and being all cool. And they're like, and then you got like they're the ones, the other, and the rest of the year are kind of, and they're the sort of like taste setters or the guardians of some kind of like, and if they say something's like, oh, we don't like that, then the other ones are like, oh shit, oh we, they're not confident enough to say, actually, they're fucking brilliant. And so what you get is, and that's most journalists. I mean, most bands follow, very few bands lead. I've always felt like we led because I don't know how to follow. I'm just like, we're doing our own thing and it is what it is. So fucking take it or leave it type of thing. But journalism, everything's like that. 90 fucking percent of it is followers and 10% are leaders. And so what you've got is 90% of the journalists just listening to these guys going, oh, they're shit. They're fucking rubbish. Don't listen to them. And they go, oh yeah, they're shit. And then they come and meet us, so one of them or whatever, and they're like, oh, I thought you were this,
Mm-hmm.
but you're this. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's just this weird thing, and that's what that documentary sort of speaks to. It's about bringing a journalist who hates our band on the road with us. That's the whole premise of it. Like I wanted to tell our story through the eyes of someone who hates our guts and
Uh,
and and see him change and see him go, oh fuck, I didn't get that. I'm completely wrong. And
wow, that's pretty
but
brilliant.
that's but the thing is, you can sort of stay up all night and worry about that. But it's like, here's the thing, all the having done that documentary and having spoken with the journalist and other journalists, you realize that they have to review a record, they have to make their decisions. They've got like 500 records a year to
Mm-hmm.
you're right, and it's
They have
so
to do it
much.
very fast. They, especially
Yeah.
now with the internet, they do not get the luxury of sitting with a record for
So
weeks.
yeah. So give me that received wisdom and I'll just like, yeah, Travis, oh fucking 4 out of 10. Listen to the first, ah yeah, fucking it's rubbish. But we on the documentary, we had other journalists come on and go after the other journalists. It was really good. You should check it out. It's
I would
very
have done it if you called me. I would have been one of the ones, the pro. But it's really interesting. You saw me probably point when you started to talk
yeah,
about Adore, because it's very interesting to me that Chris Martin and Brandon Flowers are on Raise the Bar, because I think, particularly with Coldplay, I think Travis absolutely opened. I remember when Coldplay first came out, people were comparing them
mhm.
to Travis. You guys were, you were a few years before, so it's kind of interesting. And Coldplay is another band that gets critically crapped on for no reason, probably because they're so big. And the Killers a bit as well. But like, I very, it was very cool to see the three of you on a song together. How did that come about? And do you, without, you're a humble person, but do you see the fact that there's kind of a, one, the success of Travis kind of begat Coldplay?
Yeah.
I'd actually say Killers drive more. They kind of walk through
They were
the
the
door. The
Strokes. They
Strokes
walked through.
open.
Yeah, they walked through the Strokes door.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's it. It's not. But then, yeah, but it's not like you're. There's always going to be that band, like Suede were the doormen for Britpop. They were absolutely the DNA of that whole thing came out of that band, and everything that passed through it was like almost they were the shape. You had to get into that shape to pass through that shape of door. They were Suede shaped, and bands that came after us had to be Travis shaped. And thing is, Coldplay came through, but Chris is a shapeshifter. That's what he does better than anyone. What he also does better, not better than anyone, but one of the best is melody. And that's why Coldplay, and that's why Travis, and that's why all these bands still are playing songs and still are doing their thing, because they're good at writing melodies that make you that move you, that make you go, oh, forget about your worries for a minute.
Well, one thing, you started talking about this at the very beginning of the interview about how the 5 years of that have been kind of a crazy 5 years kind of
Yeah,
coincide with you moving to LA. And
yeah,
obviously the album is called LA Times. I don't
Yeah.
know if you know this, but I'm from LA. I was born and raised here. I've literally never lived anywhere else but LA. I've
You could
traveled
ne
the world.
you would never tell. You could never tell.
Really?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not, LA
I'm
can
being
mean,
sarcastic.
some people have told me that I don't seem LA, and the thing that's weird about it is when people tell me, "Oh, you don't seem like you're from LA," they mean that as a compliment because they think
Oh, yeah.
LA is lame, and I'm like, that's kind of not a compliment because you're insulting my city. I love
Yeah.
LA, but I also see kind of sort of like what we're talking about with the dichotomy of Travis. Like there's a happy side to it and a sunny side, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
glamour and excitement, but there's a lot of darkness to it, and there's a lot of things that are
Yeah.
wrong with the city. It's a far for no city's perfect. So
Yeah.
you moved here from, I assume, Glasgow, and very
From
different.
Berlin. Berlin.
Oh, was very different.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess let's talk. The album's called LA Time, so let's talk
Yeah.
about how LA inspired this record. I know
Okay.
that you have a studio kind of near Skid Row, which is like the
Yeah.
absolute contrast of wealth and poverty right there in one city block.
Yeah. 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 It's at the boundary of something. It's at the boundary of like desperation and humanity, and all these things are happening right in that little area of Los Angeles. Los Angeles, though, I lived in New York for a time. We had a place there for 14 years, and New York looks over at LA and they're like, oh, LA, you know, LA. LA's a much harder city than New York.
Oh,
Much, much harder, I think. It's a badass city. New York, like LA's LA's like when I think of LA, I think of like you've got everything going on here. And I feel like LA's always like a coal miner's canary for the world at the moment anyway. It's going through a period of convulsions, and stuff is happening. It's like a vortex of something that nobody can quite put their finger on. I mean, you can put your finger on different things, but there's something else going on in possibly a quantum level here in this area, in this locale of the quantum soup. But the city itself, here's why LA is a badass city and why it's always maybe going to have, it's going to be hard. Moving into LA from a city like New York, everyone's bashing off each other in the streets of New York. It's multicultural. Los Angeles is multicultural, but it's also very segregated. This is me
sure.
coming in as an
You're
Auslander,
right. You're right.
and it's segregated. Not There's partly segregation because everyone sticks to their own thing. The English over there, the Irish over there, the blacks over there, the Latinos over there. That there's that everywhere in the world.
Mhm.
But in LA, it's harder because it's sprawl. It's a
Yeah.
big, giant, giant thing, and everyone drives.
Hmm.
So we're never out bashing off each other. We're never up in each other's faces so much, and so that we're not rehearsed in that here. And so there's a certain detachment that when you come in from the outside, you notice it and you're like, whoa, that's weird. But it's
Hmm.
not detachment. It's something else. It's like it's a state of mind that you need to survive in this place, in this environment. And you probably, because you've always lived here, you might not see it like I see it.
No,
Like
I
you're,
I absolutely don't. I
yeah,
mean, it's always interesting to talk to someone who came in here. They tell me it's hard to make friends here. I obviously have
no,
friends here
yeah,
that I have known for decades. So,
yeah. So here's, but you're the it's like when they say it's like boiling a frog, and that's a negative thing, but
I
you're
know
not
it's okay.
boiling a frog. But it's
Yeah, it's
like
okay.
if I lived on Mars and you came to visit me on Mars and you're like, "Oh, it's a bit the atmosphere's different than Earth and might need, some gas tanks or something." You've grown up, you're used to it. Like I'm
Hmm.
from Glasgow, fucking rains like all the time in Glasgow, all the time. And it's windy. And when people come to Glasgow, they're like, fucking hell, it's like
Yeah.
really, but we're all
Yeah.
like, we don't even notice it. I mean, we do a little bit, but it's just normal. So in the same sense that you've lived here your whole life, you don't see it like I see it. Like I really, it's an amazing city. I mean, it's an amazing city, but I have this other side of it. I see another side of it that you will never see. Um, and it's like it's a mind-blowing city, and it's an amazing city as an artist to be in,
Oh, okay, good.
especially right now. Right now, there's as I say, you've got global warming happening here right on your doorstep, things bursting into flames, fucking things flooding at the same time. You've got this homeless, crazy homeless thing
Yeah.
going on, which is just like nothing I've ever seen
I,
before.
I can tell you as someone who's lived here my whole life, I mean, that problem always existed because it exists in any major
Yeah,
city, but it's
yeah.
absolutely
It's
exploded in
going
the
on.
last
It's 10
five
years,
years, 5, 10
5
years.
years, yeah. And so that's something really like, whoa, that's different. And everyone's like, oh yeah, but it's LA and they all come to LA. And it's like, whatever, yeah, but it's saying something. I always like to try and go, well, the homelessness is a symptom of something.
Hmm.
It's a symptom not of LA though. It's a symptom of the whole big thing. And that's why I'm saying it's a coal miner's canary right at the moment, where there's something happening here that's like when you're tipping a tray and everything's gathering in a corner. Everything's gathering round about here at the moment. And it's kind of like I say, as an artist, if you're a sensitive soul and you go out and it's like, whew, you pick it up. And and who knows? We're all on the bloody San Andreas fault, which is lingering in the background a little bit. I don't think about it, and you don't think about it, but that's there. What else is there? What were we saying? I was just talking about earlier. You got Hollywood here. This is like the cradle of like movie civilization is here. Or sorry, Netflix is here, not Hollywood anymore.
Hollywood is, I'm in Hollywood right now as I talk to you.
Yeah. I just so I'm down in Venice now. We used to be
Oh,
up
good.
in the Hollywood Dell for 6 years, and 5 years, and we came down here only like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago maybe. And it's different. But
Why did you move to Los Angeles in the first place? I didn't realize
just
it was as recent as it was, that it was only in the last few years you've been here.
yeah.
I think the first time I ever interviewed you, what you
Yeah,
was it was at Sirius XM actually, but
yeah.
I wasn't aware at that time you must have just moved here.
Yeah, it was we moved. I got the house in 2016 and we moved in 2017 and we spoke in 20 maybe
18 or
18.
19.
Yeah.
But what made you come? I mean, it's obviously a big cultural
Well,
shift, lifestyle shift.
no, I don't think I never there was no plans. There was no it was very just we had a place in New York. We sold our house in New York. I happened to be passing through LA and I found a house and I was like, "Oh, it's beautiful." Got this house here. And then we were in Berlin and we're like, fuck it, let's go and let's have an adventure, another adventure. So we came here. We actually found a school, and the school is the reason why we sort of went, oh yeah, that's a pretty good school. Let's come. And the truth of the matter is, it's a school. It's like every other bloody school when you look at it at the long run. It's Clay's last day of it today, so it's like it's today is the final day of school. And so we came for him to give him some kind of like because we lived in Berlin and we came for an adventure. And by God, did we get an adventure?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you here to stay, do you think?
No,
No.
no, no. I don't stay anywhere. I'll stay for maybe another 4 or 5 years, and then I want to go somewhere else because I started moving when I was like I was born in Stafford. We moved to Glasgow, and then I moved down to London. Then I went
Hmm.
to Berlin, New York, LA, and I don't know. I where to go? Maybe Japan.
Japan would be amazing, but if it's like that song by Pop Music, London, Paris, I guess you go to Munich next.
Munich. Well,
Which
I
is,
did
but
the
you've done
kind
Germany
of did
already, yeah.
Berlin. Yeah, I don't want to do
London, New
Germany
York,
again. Germany
London,
is
Paris, I guess Paris. Have you done Paris yet?
haven't done Paris.
There you go. Then you'll complete the whole song.
Yeah,
Just
we'll
saying.
always have Paris. Is that line from that there'll always be Paris?
Something like that. Um, but the next single that's coming out from LA Times is actually about before all of this happened, before Travis were famous, before all of the things that have led up to LA Times Hab. It's a song Bus, I think
Yeah.
it's about like, if not your childhood, like, your pre-fame years in Glasgow. Tell me about that song.
Well, there's lots of it, lots of different things in the song. One is I only traveled on buses my whole life until I got to about 18, and then I got a little tiny mini. I learned to drive, and I got a wee mini, and then I stopped taking buses. But most of my life was spent, my formative life was spent sitting on buses, waiting on buses, and waiting on buses when you didn't have anything else to do. So the wait was long, and as you go through life, especially if you write songs and you start to think about metaphor, and maybe a bus stop being like quite a good one for your entire life, where you sort of wait for things to happen. And you know that great John Lennon thing, as life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So you're sort of standing at the bus stop waiting for the thing to come, and you're waiting for this thing, and all this stuff happens while you're there. And then eventually either you may want to walk to the next bus stop, which I always used to do, and then five buses passed, you're like, fuck's sake, I should have just waited. The moral of the song is your bus is going to come. You might miss it, but you're meant to miss it. It's not for you. That was someone else's bus. But you'll always get your bus. It'll always come, and it'll have your name on it. And
Obviously, oh, sorry.
go on.
I was gonna say, obviously, that's metaphorical, but like,
Yeah.
it's interesting to bring it back to when you're talking about how LA and how everyone's in their cars. Is
Yeah.
LA is like the only city that I know of where taking public transportation is like quite stigmatized. Like in other major cities, New York, Tokyo, whatever, like rich businessmen will like take the subway, they will take the bus,
Uh,
they will take the train. But in LA, if you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to take the bus somewhere, people are like, why would you take the bus? It's like really like considered like the worst ordeal you could do is to take public
yeah.
transport. It's a very weird. It's very, I guess, class systemy. Like only
Yeah.
people who can't afford cars,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Take the
Ubers.
bus. Or
Yeah.
maybe just people who want to, or maybe tourists or whatever like that. But yeah, you're right. Mostly it's people who can't afford it. And in places like New York, who's going to drive a car in New York and be stuck in traffic? They get on the subway and off you go, and everyone's. This is what I'm saying. It's like that's why New York's an easier city, because
Mm.
it's every culture in the world, and they're all mixed together in this big kind of melting pot. And here we're all separated. It's very segregated, and but again, that's interesting to me. I think it's really interesting. And yeah, there's another segment of it, traveling on buses and waiting on buses. You learn a lot by waiting on buses.
What'd you learn from it back when you used
What
to
do you
take the
learn?
bus?
No, you meet people. People talk to you, and you have time to think about things. Maybe not so much now with everyone's got on their bloody phones, but I definitely,
Mm.
my God, the amount of it's like actually doing these interviews. These are like these interviews are almost like you're like a psychotherapist talking to me about the last 5 years of my life, and I don't quite haven't really thought about them until I'm talking to you about them.
Hmm.
But and I haven't really thought about bus stops. And um there's a great song by Graham Gouldman, and a song called Bus Stop that his father helped him write. And his father, I think, wrote the lyric for it, and it's all about a bus stop. And not that I wasn't thinking of that when I did this, but they got the bus. It's such a big part of his life, and it's such a big part of my life,
Well,
and the bus journey as well. I mean, but the waiting is like you sit beside people, and then a bus comes, and it's not your bus. It's someone else's. You say goodbye to them, and you never see them again. And then someone else comes and sits beside you, and you talk to. It's just such a um. It's funny, we talk about LA being this place well, I talk about LA being this place that's very segregated, and this culture's here, that culture's there, this culture's there. And you've got the poorer aspect of the city, the people who say can't afford a car, so travel on public transport, people who can't afford houses and have to live on the street. What I've learned, interestingly, is that there's they have community. I stayed in my house in Hollywood Hills for 5 years. I know when I was moving out, I met my neighbor for the first time,
Yep.
right? And that's not really communal. That's the opposite of communal. It's
Hmm.
like fuck off and leave me alone
Yep.
type of thing. But they're not saying that. But it's like when I travel, I walk through the Skid Row every day, almost every day, and there's community, and this is a thing that
Hmm. Yeah.
this is a thing that they're trying to like get people housed, but they're breaking up communities. It's like they're people have been living there for so long that it's their fucking lives. It's their and it's not. We all like look at it and go, oh, they're that's disgusting, but they're they've got more community than us. Everyone,
You're right.
so
It's interesting.
we're we've lost in chasing the dollar and joining the rat race and paying the bills and trying to fucking we've maybe lost something that's kind of priceless. And I think that it's hard for a city like LA to pull together when it's so when the geography of it doesn't allow it to happen and the so it's kind of hard. And that's why going back to the very beginning of the conversation, why LA is badass and actually New York's kind of like it's not as hard to live in because you have it's multicultural, it's all together, it's fucking mental and everyone's in it together. My friend is a journalist in Norway and he's doing this really interesting article. He's written two. One won the biggest awards. In fact, someone from the New York Times stole it and made their own story of his story and won like Pulitzer prizes with it. About that story was about the man who no one was at his funeral.
I think I
And my
remember that.
friend, yeah, well, you would remember the New York Times version of
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
because my mate in Norway was the guy who came up with the story. And but this loneliness, and he's now writing a new, almost like a follow-up to that 20 years later, um, which is people who in Norway, in Oslo, are not discovered. They die, and they're not discovered for a long time. And I was like, how many? Because he's like he researches really well. 200 people in the last 5 years or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I was like, what's the longest time? 11 years where someone in an apartment and the neighbors just and it's like it's again that thing about that's a symptom of something.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I've run out of time. I don't want to
Oh.
leave it on that note, which is
Ah,
I want to just ask one last thing, which sort of actually takes to the beginning of this conversation where we
yeah,
were like comparing hair colors and I was complimenting the orange. Looks so good
love
on
it.
you. The first single from this album, Gaslight, the video, were you paying homage to Stone Temple Pilots with the orange hair and the Big Bang Baby look of the
See,
video?
that's the interesting thing because I don't really know that band so well.
Okay.
I was at my son's pinning ceremony where you go up and you do your little thing at the graduation. It's a pre-graduation thing, and someone guy came up to me and he goes, "Yo, man, that it was really nice Scott Wayland tribute," and
I totally thought it was.
I was like, what? And I know and then I was like, oh fuck, of course, yeah, he had this. So yeah, I'll take it.
Okay.
He's but there's I was thinking more the color was more I wanted it to be more like Annie Lennox
Hmm.
and and also John Lydon and
Yep.
also that sort of thing. But I'll take Scott Weiland any day of the week.
It was more, watch the video for Big Bang Baby. It very specifically has that kind of like 80s look with the white background, and you kind of
Really?
see like the equipment, it's very much like that. That's why I thought it wasn't so much the hair, it was the hair
Yeah.
with the whole
Wow.
aesthetic of the video. Great song, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, I've loved chatting with you.
Yeah,
Congratulations
it's
on
always
a
lovely.
fantastic album. Maybe I'll see you out in LA before you move to Paris or
Oh,
wherever is
you will.
next.
Yeah,
I'll
oh,
look
you
for the
will. Won't be
hair.
hard to miss.
Ditto. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah, great to chat again. Thanks a lot.